Oh, hello and welcome to Soap Scoop. Daniel Brocklebank, otherwise known as Billy from Coronation Street. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. How are you doing?
Really well, thank you. I'm so pleased that we caught you because, of course, you are swapping the street for the stage. So it's been a busy time.
It's been insane. Yeah, so I'm doing Young Frankenstein at the Playhouse in Liverpool. We opened last week. It's been it's been like being shot out of a cannon. I literally finished filming with Corrie at 1:45 on the 18th of November, and by 1:30 I was in the rehearsal room with a pair of tap shoes on, singing and dancing. So I've not even had time to kind of process that I'm not at Corrie anymore. It's been such a busy time. We only had 5 days rehearsal to get the show, though, having not really done theatre since about 2012 and having never done musical theatre, this was like a baptism of fire. I mean, it's been insane. I did the show last night, and a couple of the guys from Corrie came down. Georgia Taylor and Claire Sweeney and the lovely Gareth Pierce came down to watch it, and that's the first lot of the Corrie family that have come to see the show, and they all loved it, so that's good. Nothing went wrong, which I'm thrilled with.
I'm so glad you mentioned your tap shoes because what I was going to say to you is that the last time I saw you was on a very busy Inside Soap Awards dance floor.
Yes.
And at no point did I see you whip out your tap shoes.
No.
So I feel like I've been robbed and I'm going to need to come and see Young Frankenstein to put it right.
I think I probably had too much beer to get any tap shoes out at that Inside Soap do. But yeah, do come and see it. Come and see it. It's such a fun show. And I think this time of year, and especially with the sort of state of the world at the moment, people could do with a laugh. And it is a really fun, upbeat production. The score, the songs are fantastic. The dance routines are incredible. And I'm not just saying this. I mean, I could be just saying this, but I'm not. Every single cast member is fantastic. It's such a strong company. And they are the loveliest group of people. They've made me feel so welcome. I think it's always hard when you're taking over a role, because it opened at Hope Mill Theatre in Manchester and had been running for sort of 5 or 6 weeks before I joined, with Ore Aduba in the lead role. And by that point, of course, the cast has already bonded. They've rehearsed together. They've sort of formed their little cliques and friendship groups. So when you're joining like the new boy, it's like starting a new school, especially when leaving something like Corrie, where, I've been for 11 years and I've got such a tight-knit, close group of friends there. So to go from being surrounded by people that I'd known for more than a decade to suddenly walking into a room full of people I've never met, it was quite daunting.
Yeah.
It's been lovely.
I was going to say to you, because you didn't really have time to take a breath because you literally finished filming and went straight to the stage, was that a good thing in a way? Because, like when you say goodbye to a job or anything that you've done for a really long time, there is a sort of a goodbye process that you kind of have to work through, don't you? But you didn't get that chance. You just went straight to it.
No, it was so lovely. My final day there, my last scene, obviously we shoot out of sequence, but my last scene was shot on the street. And it was absolutely in true Manchester style, hammering it down with rain. And I don't know, 100, 150 people, cast and crew, all piled out onto the street, all with umbrellas and their, wet weather gear on, to say goodbye. And it was bizarre because it felt like just any normal day at work. But in the back of my mind, I knew that this was my final scene. And then in the other part of my mind, I knew that I was just going to have to get into my car and drive straight to a theatre that I've never worked at and walk into a room full of people that I didn't know. And even if when I first got to the theatre, I drove from the Corrie set in absolute silence. I didn't really know, because as I was leaving the gates, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the last time I'll ever drive out of these gates. Suddenly you're confronted with all of these lasts, and I drove to the theatre in absolute silence, parked, and I went into the theatre, and there's a lovely lady in there, and she said, oh, you all right? I said, yeah. She said, "Oh, will you just come from Corrie?" I said, "Yeah, I've just finished." And she went, "Oh, when are you back in?" And I said, "No, I've finished. Like, that was my last scene." And she went, "Oh, are you all right?" I said, "I don't really know.
Yeah.
Have a cup of tea." And I sat down and I had a cup of tea and sort of gathered myself. But I thought, I can't let this new cast of people's first impression of me being, you know,
Grief.
oh yeah. I mean, so I thought, no, I've got to pull my socks up and just be professional. And because we'd got such a short rehearsal process, I'd already made sure that I'd learned all of the lyrics, the songs. I'd learned all of the script, so that all I had to learn was the blocking and the dance moves and everything else. So I was quite well prepared for my first day, and as I said, everybody was so lovely. But I've still not had time to process it. I mean, as I said, I saw Georgia and Claire and Gareth last night, and there was, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm fine. Like, I'm knackered." Having never done musical theatre, I think I'd underestimated how physically, vocally, and mentally challenging playing the lead in a 2.5 hour production is. I mean, on act one, particularly for me, I'm barely off stage. I literally leave and come straight back on, and it's song after song after song after song. And it's made me realize, actually, that I can probably do anything if I can get this amount of show on in such a short space of time. Actually, I can probably bloody do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, do you think, when are you going to tune in for your final episodes? Do you think that might be when it hits you?
Yes, I will do. Obviously, that's at some point in January, by which point I will have finished Young Frankenstein, because we only run until January the 3rd. And I think then once the show's done, Christmas is out of the way, New Year is out of the way. There's so much to focus on at the moment that I just haven't had time to even think about it. Obviously, my good friends there, I've spoken to loads. They've all been checking in on me to see how rehearsals are going, to see how I am. I spoke to Harriet, who plays Summer. We had a long chat on Sunday, a nice little catch up, because I was off on Sunday, and I literally didn't leave the house. I was absolutely broken. I'm 46 week after next, and my 46-year-old body is really telling me I'm 46. Like, and all the rest of the guys in the company, they're like young and kind of in the 20s, and they've got loads of energy. On Saturday night, we finished the show, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going out in Liverpool. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Going home, man."
You just sleep.
Pajamas and lying in front of the fire and probably just staring into the abyss, just wondering what the hell has happened this week. I'm absolutely exhausted. So obviously, I'm very much still in touch with all of my pals there. I think next week there's Tony Maud's is coming to see it. Ali King's coming this Saturday on the matinee, and then there's a load of other people. Julia Goulding's coming Saturday night. Harriet's coming Saturday night. Then next week there's a load of other people. So, there will be a little trickle of Corrie family throughout the course of the run, which will be lovely, because it's been last night. It was so nice to see some familiar faces. But I think what I'm most thrilled about doing this show, it's such a left field decision.
I remember at the Inside Soap Awards, we had the funniest conversation, because I said to you, "Oh, you've done Emmerdale, you've done Corrie. Do you want to do EastEnders and get the hat trick?" And you went, "Well, I've done EastEnders." And I didn't believe you. We had a mild argument, and then you said, and then you rightly called me out on it, because that terrible Inside Soap journalist didn't know this. So yeah, I mean, I suppose the only soap that you've not done, if I'm correct, is Hollyoaks.
That's correct. Yeah,
So
I'm not young or sexy enough to do that.
Honestly, you are. If Chester Bosses give you a ring, will you complete the set?
Oh my goodness! Listen, never say never. It's such an odd thing to be. As I said, I've been doing this for a living for 32 years, and I've never really got myself out of the mindset of being a jobbing actor, because even on something like Coronation Street, you're still only contracted for a year at a time. And I think one would be foolish to assume that you're going to be there for longer than that year, because I think you potentially set yourself up to fail. Because ultimately, if you look at the 65 years of Coronation Street, realistically, Bill Roach and Barbara Knox are about the only two people to have ever been in it, you know, for the show's tenure. In fact, Bill is the only one, really. Barbara joined, I think, 3 or 4 years after Bill.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you think about the hundreds or possibly thousands of actors and characters that have passed through that street in the 65 years of its life, you know, I'm just one of many, you know, blessed to have spent the time there that I did, but I never ever considered, you know, I mean, I moved up from London. I bought a house in Manchester. You know, it made sense to have my life here because it was nearer to work and all of that kind of stuff. But I love Manchester, and I lived in Manchester on and off since I was in my early 20s anyway. I came up to do a play at the Royal Exchange Theatre, I think in 2003 or 4 maybe, and just fell in love with Manchester and was like, this city is fantastic. It's like London, but half the price and with friendly people.
Yeah.
Everybody speaks to you in London, whereas, you know, up here, everyone, all right, love, you're all right, how's it going?
We love coming up north to see the
It's so friendly, it's lovely. So I've lived up in Manchester on and off since I was in my early 20s anyway, and I love this city, and it really is home for me. And, you know, the jobbing thing now is instant. I mean, it's bizarre how quickly you switch back into that mindset. The moment I knew I was leaving Corrie, it was like, right, what's next? Right, come on then. Okay. It was, you know, sort of almost instant. I mean, even on my last day there, Verity, our assistant producer, came down and made a lovely speech on the street. And they said, oh, Dan, you're going to make a speech. And I said, I haven't got time. I've got to get to my next job. I'll see you soon. I'll see you in the pub tonight, you know, because I have a very, very low key drinks thing that evening in one of the pubs in Media City with, you know, a load of people from work. So I've sort of said my goodbyes properly that evening after I'd finished rehearsals. So it was sort of, you know, very whirlwind. But now it is that thing of I'm freelance. So what's next? What's next?
Yeah, well, that is going to be a question that I'm going to ask you a bit later on. But I have to know right now, did you take the dog collar with you?
I took a few things, actually. I took all of his jeans. They fit. I took a couple of pairs of shoes. Billy had the most beautiful leather chair in his sitting room, a brown leather chair, wooden arms. That's in my bedroom.
You got a chair?
My chair.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's the wall that you never really see on Billy's flat, what we would call the fourth wall. Sometimes, depending on which angle we shot from, you did see it, but invariably it was the wall that you're looking into as an audience. And I think the art department probably did this because I have 3 sausage dogs, Colin, Jean, and Doris.
Yeah.
They put this artwork on the wall, which was two different pictures. One picture was the front end of a sausage dog, and the other was the back end of a sausage dog. Obviously, when you put them together, it's a whole dog. So I have those. I also have one of Billy and Paul's wedding photos from inside the church, which my other half in real life was like, we're not putting that on the bloody wall. People think you married somebody else. So yeah, I took a few bits. In fact, I have a little box up here, which is sort of a Corrie memory box. I don't want to use the word hoarder, but I do, over the course of the years of my working, I do keep memorabilia and stuff. I mean, I did a movie years ago called Shakespeare in Love, which won like 7 Oscars, and it was a really big deal. It was the biggest movie that year.
Yeah.
I would have only been 18, and I've still got like the program from the premiere in Leicester Square and photo albums of, because back then there was no digital photography. It was all, you know, you took your thing into Boots and they and I've got stuff from all sorts of different production scripts. From, my goodness, I did a movie called The Hole years ago, which was like a horror thriller thing. It was me, Keira Knightley, and I was the baddie.
Some great people.
Great. My goodness. Oh, I've been blessed. I mean, you know, when I think over the 32 years, apparently, and I don't know how accurate this is, according to the Actors Union Equity, there's only 2% of our industry working at any one time. Well, pretty much for 32 years, I've been part of that 2%. And I am so grateful, you know, that, and I think also adaptability is helpful. You know, I am able to cross genres from telly to theatre to film to animation. So I'm very lucky in that sense that I can, if it's quiet in one genre, I can put my tap shoes on in this case and tap my way into a wage. So it's sort of, I'm very grateful. I mean, it's been a wonderful life. I mean, I feel like I've packed in about 6 people's lifetimes into the 32 years that I've been doing this for a living. I started working at 14.
Yeah.
I said I'll be 46 week after next. So it's been a ride.
And 11 years of that, of Billy. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen more drama than you can shake a stick at.
Yes.
Do you remember when you joined the street, did you get a character breakdown? And is that who Billy turned out to be in the end?
No, not at all. I mean, yes, I did get a character breakdown, but as the character developed, and that's the beautiful thing about a show like Corrie, normally with a play, like tonight, I'll be performing the whole thing from beginning to middle to end, the entire arc. When you're reading a movie script, that's your entire arc, unless they decide to bring in a sequel. Whereas with Corrie, rather than the beginning, the middle, and the end, you're constantly just playing middle.
Yeah.
So you never quite know what they're going to throw at you. And of course, I mean, it wasn't until Kate Oates came in as producer, who I adored working with. I love that woman.
It's great.
I'm still in touch with Kate now, actually. I saw her in the summer and we went out and had a nice walk in the countryside and a little drink in the sunshine. And she called me up and she said, "Can you meet me for a drink? I've got some really exciting news." I said, "Oh, okay." So I went and met her for a drink and she said, "We are going to bring Billy's provenance history of Coronation Street back by 16 years. And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "He is going to be partly responsible for the death of Susan Barlow." And I said, what do you mean? That's nuts. How?" And she said, "We've gone through the archives and we've tried to find a death that was unexplained. And it turns out that we found one in Susan. And so this is how we're going to weave this in." And her storytelling abilities are fantastic. And she said, "And then, he's going to get thrown off this cliff on Christmas Day." And I was like, "What, are you killing him?" She was like, "No, he'll be fine eventually." She sort of told me about this incredibly exciting storyline. So, of course, that's a huge amount of backstory to then suddenly learn about your character, because I'd often wondered about why he'd become a vicar, what had drawn him to that, a clerical life. And then once we'd sat down and discussed that it was, because actually he'd been a bit of a wrong 'un and he'd used God and religion to take him away from that and lead him to something more pure and to do something good with his life. I thought, well, that's genius. Brilliant. Okay. So, blanks do get sort of filled in as you go along. And then I think sometimes as an actor, you make character choices that the writers don't necessarily expect. I remember once, and it was such a small scene, Tina O'Brien was working behind the bar in the Rovers. And in this scene, he walked in and had to chuck a pint back. And she sort of had to look at him, and I had to say to her, "Have you never seen a vicar drink a pint before?" It was really innocuous. But I decided to play him really annoyed, like he'd had the worst day of his life. And I drank this pint and sort of snapped back. "What, have you never seen a vicar drink a pint before?" Snapped at her. And I saw one of the writers not long afterwards, and he went, "That was genius." He said, "A vicar with a temper." I don't think you ever really see vicars played with that bit of an edge. So then that led into me beating up Peter Barlow and, and all these other sort of storylines. So I suppose Corrie's a bit like a game of tennis, really. The writers chuck it at you, you chuck it back, and then, the ideas sort of bounce backwards and forwards. And I never wanted Billy to be a predictable character. I think often members of the clergy are often played as a bit insipid. And I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, I go to my local church in my village all the time, and the vicar there, she's feisty. So I think that I'm glad that he's been he's kept me on my toes
He
for.
has, yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the Susan Barlow because I was going to say to you what was your favorite storyline twist because that's what I was going to say was ours, like that just
Yeah.
whole backstory for Billy. And also, I know, I mean, you've spoken a lot about the MND storyline and that kind of being one of your proudest storylines.
Without a doubt. I
Did
think it's
did
got to.
Corrie? So I was going to say to you, did Corrie come to you with that, or did you go to them with your experience? And
No, they had no idea of my connection to MND or the MND Association. So I was out walking my dogs and the phone rang and it was Verity, our assistant producer. And you don't often get calls from the bosses. So you're either in trouble or, so I thought, oh, tentatively answered. And she said, look, Ian is on the phone to Peter right now. I'm calling you. You're the only two cast members we're discussing this with at the moment. So you to keep it under your belts. But we just wanted to let you know what's going to be happening with Billy and Paul over the next sort of 12, 18 months. And I thought, oh, okay. And she said, well, they're going to get married. And it will be the first time we'll have ever had a successful same-sex wedding on the show, which I was thrilled with. And she said, obviously, that's going to throw up a few issues because Billy will want to get married in a religious setting. But obviously, you can't have a same-sex unit. It has to be a civil ceremony as opposed to a religious one. And so that's going to throw up some interesting, sort of things. But Paul is going to be diagnosed with motor neurons disease. And I'm not joking. I had to stop. And it was a frosty day. It was a beautiful, crisp October frosty day. And my legs went a bit weak. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, and I mean, I don't know if you know much about motor neurons disease, but sadly, most people, about 60% of people diagnosed die within the first sort of 18 months to 2 years. So this storyline will run. And I said, well, I do know a huge amount about MND. Are you doing this because of my connection with the MND Association? She said, what do you mean? What's your connection? I said, I'm an ambassador for the charity. I've been working with them for over 20 years. My grandfather died of motor neurons disease. And she sort of said, well, no, we hadn't got any idea at all that you did all of this stuff, for them. She said, do you think you'll be okay telling a story that's been so personal to you and your family? And I thought at the time, I don't really know, actually. I don't know how this is going to feel, because the weird thing about doing a storyline on Corrie, you might shoot a movie in 2 months, but with a show like Corrie, you play that storyline out in real time.
yeah.
And I'd never, in all my years of being an actor, played a storyline that it was something so close to something that I'd actually lived through and my family had lived through. And of course, because of my contractual stipulations of restrictions, I couldn't, it was my mum's dad who had MND. I couldn't tell my mum that I was doing it. I couldn't tell any of the other family, until it started to come out on screen. And my mum was like, are you? I was like, yeah. And I need your permission now. Will it be okay if I talk about our experiences?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, because I know so many people within the MND community and their families, I feel that it would be really helpful to be able to talk about this publicly, because it is a subject that a lot of people don't know much about. It is an illness that people don't know much about. I mean, they say it's a rare illness, but it's 1 in 300 people are diagnosed with it. So that doesn't seem particularly rare to me at all. That at any one time there are around 6,000 people in the UK living with motor neurons disease, which is, it's a sizable number.
Yeah, it's such an education because I now feel like I know so much about it after watching Coronation Street. And this is coming from having barely any knowledge prior to watching the storyline. So I think you did such a fantastic job with that, you and Peter, and just the way that it played out, and just so real. Not just the people involved, but the people it affected, the carers, the technology that's available. That to me was mind-blowing. So I can completely understand why, that was a complete triumph for you.
I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, and the relationship as well between Billy and Paul. I mean, I know before that it was a bit like, will they, won't they? And there was Todd in the mix as well. But After that storyline, would you say that Paul was perhaps the love of Billy's life?
Yes, I think so. And it helped very much by the fact that in real life, Pete and I get on incredibly well. We speak all the time. I saw him a couple of weeks ago. We had a beer. And the fact that we, even during the most bleak parts of that storyline, Pete and I were still having an absolute hoot together, trying to keep each other pepped up, because the researchers and writers and storyliners did such a good job on that. I never once read a script and thought, well, that wouldn't happen, or that wouldn't happen like that. They were so brilliantly accurate with it. I mean, and we get our scripts every 2 weeks at Corrie, so you get 2 weeks to prep, and then whilst you're shooting those episodes, you get the next lot in and you start prepping. And I'd be picking my scripts up and then phoning Pete, going, "Oh my God, have you read it?" And he'd be like, "Oh yeah." So I'd be crying reading them, crying shooting them, crying watching them. But incredibly, incredibly proud of that storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. It felt very, very special to be telling such a personal story so publicly. And I really do feel, well, not feel, I know I've had so many messages from people within the MND community saying things like, people now understand what I have. People now talk to me differently because they understand what this disease has done to me, but it's only physical rather than being something, mental, where you can't understand people necessarily, that you can understand, you just can't respond.
Yeah.
So I think it did do a lot of good in terms of being able to open people's eyes as to what that illness is.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you're on the periphery of another very serious storyline with the coercive control with Todd and Theo. Billy's seen the flashes of anger from Theo already, so he's probably got an idea. What's it been like to be a part of that storyline, especially with the history between Todd and Billy?
Yeah, I mean, predominantly that storyline is Todd and Theo's, and Billy is very much a peripheral sort of character within that. But obviously, because of Todd and Billy's history, also with Billy's ability, he's a vicar, so we will have training in pastoral care. He's not stupid, so he will be. And I think on screen now, really starting to question Theo's sort of not just motives, but question his sort of personality, and as to whether this person is actually good for Todd. Because I suppose in the long run, although she's now an adult, Todd and Billy have a child, and therefore anything that's affecting Todd could potentially ultimately affect her too. So yeah, it's been, I mean, it's, as I said, I think Gareth has all the brunt of this storyline.
I know, but obviously the history between them. I mean, do you think there's any residual feelings between Todd and Billy? Would you like Billy to be the one to save him if there was such a opportunity?
Yes, I mean, Billy could put on a cape and wear his pants over his tights, couldn't he? And do some sort of heroic vicar Superman thing. Yeah, it would be nice. I think, obviously, I don't think there are any residual feelings necessarily between Billy and Todd, but I think when you've been that close with someone, you never really stop caring about them. You might not be in love with them anymore, but you never really stop caring for them. And Billy's a very caring person, so he would want Todd to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And another question I was going to ask you is that without Billy to look after the street, who do you think could step up to be the new vicar?
They better bloody not get a new vicar. I'll be livid.
No, he's irreplaceable.
Well, I think in terms of when you think about the sort of the characters within a show like Coronation Street, each character serves a purpose, and I feel like Billy, in a sort of a roundabout way, almost not replaced, but that story cog. When Eileen Derbyshire decided to leave, when Emily Bishop left the show, Emily was always this sort of voice of reason and a good standing Christian. And so when Eileen left, I feel like Billy kind of filled that void. But it's just full of wrong-uns now, isn't it? I don't know who the bloody hell would actually be the voice of sort of reason now at the moment. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I haven't actually watched it for a while because I've been too busy on stage. I'm giving myself to the general public while it's on, so I haven't actually catch up. But I don't know. I don't know.
Is it maybe Chesney or
Possibly little Ches. I don't know.
someone with a kind soul?
Yeah, Chesney's obviously very kind. Kirk, he's very kind.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not all bad, are they?
Until he gets up and sings "Our Souls Are Beautiful,"
Yeah.
then perhaps the church might not approve.
Yeah. Yes.
Young Frankenstein, where can we book tickets to see you while the tour is still going?
So we are on at the Playhouse in Liverpool, and we will be running there until January the 3rd.
All right, amazing. So people just fire up the Google,
bring up the old Liverpool Playhouse. If you Google Young Frankenstein Liverpool, that will take you directly to, I'm fairly certain, the theatre's website where you'll be able to book tickets and come and see us. But it's selling quite fast, actually.
need to get this out pronto.
Yeah.
And finally, I know we spoke about, beyond this project, what would you love to do next?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think in the new year, I just want a rest.
A rest.
Because I'm exhausted. The last few months of Corrie were quite intense. And, as we've discussed, I literally had 0 minutes between finishing that and starting this. And this is as much fun as this is. It's exhausting. I am knackered. And so I think come the new year, maybe a little holiday, I think, or just at least a time to breathe and maybe wash my pants because I've not even had time to do that. And then I don't know. I mean, I'm attached to. There's a horror movie that I'm attached to, but I don't know when that would be shooting. There's other bits and bobs in the pipeline. I think for me now, and I've had long discussions with my representatives about this, my agents, and all that kind of stuff. After such a long time in a show like Corrie, you need a rebrand.
Mm.
And I'm very much not like Billy. I don't sound like Billy. I don't walk like Billy. I am a character actor. I mean, if you come to see Frankenstein, I'm nothing like me or Billy was either. And throughout my career, I've gone from playing people's kids at 14 to playing people's dads at 46. Probably I'm not far off from potentially playing people's grandfathers. I don't know. So my brand, my product has changed. I'm hurtling towards 50 quicker than I ever imagined possible. So it's more of a rebrand, really. I think doing this show has sort of opened my eyes to the potential of more musical theatre. That would be fun. But I don't really know. I mean, I think it's hard for me because I've worked in every genre going.
Yeah.
Basically, I can do anything. So, I would love to maybe do some nice gritty series for Netflix or, a lovely glossy ITV drama. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, and if not, I'll just be walking my dogs and pottering in my allotment.
I was going to say about the dogs, I can see Colin's stocking behind you.
They've all got stocking. There's dogs. No. And Jean, and then Collins, and then Peoples. They've all got their own stocking.
Lovely. Well, I mean,
drying off in the kitchen. I'd just taken them out for a long walk before I spoke.
Yeah, I was wondering if they'd make a cameo.
No, they're bloody filthy. They're drying off.
Before I let you go, finally, how would you like your time as Billy on the Street to be remembered? What's his legacy?
My goodness. I don't know. There's a few things that people, that when the fans make memes, and one of the favorite memes, and I didn't realize I'd done this as much as I had, but there's quite a few trumpet noises that I made.
Okay.
In various episodes, and that seems to have been memed quite a lot. His kindness, I suppose. I'd rather forget the drug addiction. Let's forget the heroin. That was a dark period. That
was a bit left field.
It was, yeah. So I think we can forget that one. I wasn't too keen on that, but I think maybe just his kindness, his sort of, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard, really. After I can't really quantify that and put it into a.
I think kindness is a lovely way to sum it up because he really was the go-to for so many people. And even though he had his own problems, he was always there for people in the end.
Yes, he was.
I think that's how, your Corrie experience will be remembered. And certainly here at Inside Soap, we thank you for your wonderful service to the street because.
Bless your heart. No, thank you. It's always been delightful talking to you guys.
And you,
All
honestly.
the best parties. I mean, I have to be honest. I never remember them, which means they're really good.
You're still very welcome to all the parties. So if you can make it, please come and join us. Our dance floor is your oyster. Thank you so much, Daniel Brocklebank. If you want to go and see Daniel on stage, it's Young Frankenstein at the Liverpool Playhouse. That is correct.
Liverpool Playhouse, correct.
And we will relish your final scenes on Corrie. I know they're going to be amazing. So everybody, please tune into Coronation Street. And in the meantime, Daniel, have a really lovely Christmas. You have to.
Thanks so much.